Good afternoon, everyone. So once again, welcome to the info sessions organized by the School of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering, and Biotechnology. So our event will begin now. So I'm Li Qing, a Year 2 CB student, and together with me, Song Kiet. So we will be your host for today. So this is the program overview for the event today. Shortly after this, we will have our professor sharing, followed by a Q&A interactive sessions in the breakout room. So without any further delay, so let me first introduce our Professor Raymond Lau. So he will be sharing on the relevance of the CCEB educations in the new sustainable bioeconomy. So Prof. Raymond, please.
Thank you, Li Qing. So let me share my slides. Okay, so I hope you can see the slides. So my name is Raymond Lau. I'm the Associate Chair of Academics. So essentially, I would be responsible for the curriculum, the design, and also the additions of courseworks, liaising with industries regarding the bioengineering and the chemical and biomolecular engineering programs for the school. So for today's sharing, I suppose most of them have received the offer because you have applied to us. And at this stage, you are probably trying to decide what program to choose and maybe to decide between a number of different programs and maybe even the universities. So I probably would not be spending too much time in elaborating the different program options because I think by now we should be quite clear on what it is there. But instead, what I'm hoping to talk about is actually what you should be considering when you're deciding on a program and how would that impact your future career. Okay. So one thing first, definitely, I'm sure when you apply, you're applying to School of Chemical and Biomedical Engineering. But then you also hear the news recently that talks about the formation of a new school by merging with the Chemistry and Biological Chemistry Division in NTU. So we will be forming this new school, School of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering, and Biotechnology. So what does this mean to most of you, and what does it mean to the program that you applied to? So one thing that I would say is that in terms of the core courses that you will need for the program, it would have no change at all. So what is required for bioengineering and what is required for chemical and biomolecular engineering will be exactly the same. But the added advantage is that now, since we have an addition of chemistry and biochemistry into the school, so that means you will have access to the classes that are originally only be available for the chemistry and biological chemistry students. And one of the moves why we're merging the school and the formation of this new school is that we have talked to industries, we have talked to government agencies to look at what they think about the future direction of education. And one of the feedbacks that we receive is that they would want engineering students to be more skills in the science aspect, such that when they apply their engineering knowledge, they would also be knowing the science behind it. But at the same time, we also want the science students to be exposed to the engineering practices, such that when they practice their science, they will have a future goal in mind. So with this large selection of courses of chemistry and biological chemistry courses, that means you will be able to expose to a lot more electives, whether it is something that is of your interest or whether it is something that you would want to explore for your career development. Okay, so we have several programs One of the program is the second majors. We have two new second majors, which would be the data analytics and entrepreneurship, which are new this year. And some of the, I guess, the older programs would be that we have second major in business, pharmaceutical engineering, as well as the second major in food science and technology. So for those who have been offered with these second majors, my suggestion is, even if you are not sure whether you want to go with the second major or whether the topic is something that is of your interest, my suggestion actually is that if you're offered with second major, do take up this opportunity and accept these programs. Because when you are in second major, let's say after one semester or two semesters, and you find that okay, maybe business is not something that you're interested in, and you decided that you don't want it anymore, you can still drop it. But most of these second majors, actually, it is only offered to students during the admission. So meaning you are in a single degree program, but you decided that, oh, you wanted to get into a second major after first semester. Actually, in most cases, it would not be possible. So for those students who are offered with second majors, do take a good consideration and accept that first, even though if you're not sure about the topics yet. And for those students who are applying to the single degree programs, whether it is bioengineering or chemical and biomolecular engineering, don't worry, you are not going to be left out. So we still have a lot of minors programs for you to choose from. And for minors, it is going to be a selection of courses that you need to fulfill. So as long as you have fulfilled these courses before you graduate, then you can apply for minors. And there are huge selections of minors, and we will be constantly adding new minor programs to make it available. So you can decide on these minors later on. And a lot of these minor courses actually would require you to use your the broadening and deepening elective course quotas. So that means you don't have to rush in and decide what minors you want to get, but you can get yourself more familiar with the university as well as the industry landscape before you decide which of these minors you want to take up. And I think one of the decision-making process is that, oh, what would you be doing after you have obtained a degree with us? So whether you are in a single degree program or a second major program or even a double degree program, your main degree will still be bioengineering or chemical and biomolecular engineering. So in terms of statistics, they are all going to be lumped together. So second major and double degree would be together with the single degree students. So for bioengineering students, the graduate employment survey conducted last year, it actually shows that our graduates, the top 5 industries they will be working in, the number 1 would be in the pharmaceutical and biological products manufacturing. And I guess without much surprises, then the second and third most popular industry would be the medical and precision instruments as well as the healthcare. In terms of job occupation, the titles that they receive would be biomedical engineers, quality control or quality assurance engineer, or compliance officers. And the reason why I'm showing these occupation or job titles is that a lot of time when you're deciding on a degree programs to get into, so you may consider, oh, you're interested in biology or you're interested in chemistry, but then you may not be thinking about what is it that you'll be doing after graduation. And even if you do think about it, you may just say, oh, I want to work in a pharma company or I want to work in hospitals. But there are many different jobs that is in a pharmaceutical company or that is in a hospital, and they can be very different in nature. Is that the kind of job you want to do? Or what kind of job would you be doing as a biomedical engineer or as a quality assurance engineer? So I'm listing this such that if you are still indecisive and not sure what program to choose, or whether the programs that you are offered now is something that you want to do. So I would encourage you to do a quick Google search, type the job titles in the search engine, and then look at the job search websites, because many times they would actually tell you what would be the role and responsibilities of these job titles. So you can take a look at it and see whether that is something that is of your interest. And then in terms of the top employers, I guess without much surprises, you will see a lot of the big name companies in pharmaceutical companies, or the medical product companies, as well as hospitals. And in terms of employment rate, we have a very healthy employment rate of 90.9% last year. And the mean salary is $3,654. I mean, it's good salary, but I would not be paying too much attention on the salary itself, because a lot of time it is the nature of the job that is important. And essentially 98% of our students actually would have received the job offers between 3 to 4 months after graduation. Now, another thing that you may also be looking up to is that this mean salary, we are talking about the starting salary, but after working a few years, you would actually be promoted, or you may be changing to a different job role. So we have also done an informal survey with our bioengineering graduates to look at, so where are they at 3 to 5 years after graduation, and what kind of salary are they getting? So we are not really listing down the exact salaries, because sometimes it can be a bit sensitive. But essentially the feedbacks that we receive, depending on what you're doing, actually you can still get quite an attractive salary as well as increment after working 3 to 5 years. And now in terms of the chemical and biomolecular engineering, it turns out electronic products, it's the top industry that recruit the CBE graduates, followed by number 2 would be the pharmaceutical and biological product manufacturing. We also have information and communication. So in a similar situation, I also want to mention what would be the top job titles that the CBE graduates will be doing. So again, you can do a Google search on these job titles and then look at the roles and responsibility of these jobs. So Micron is definitely one of the biggest semiconductor companies that we have in Singapore, and they are one of the top recruiters of our graduates as well. Then Novartis, MSD, both are the pharmaceutical companies. Global Foundries would also be another semiconductor company. So similarly, we have fairly similar employment rates for CBE students, 91.1%. And the mean salary is slightly higher, probably mainly because of the involvement of the chemical companies. And in a similar situation, we also look at the salaries of our graduates 3 to 5 years after graduation. So their job titles they can stay as engineers, or some of them actually becomes managers. So again, actually it shows quite a healthy growth in terms of the salary, and that will be something that you can look up to as well. So after talking about those career perspective of the, I guess, your potential seniors, then the other one I wanted to draw your attention is when you choose a program, what should be the deciding factor? I think most of you probably would think that after graduation, you would want to go to work as soon as possible. So we would also want to look at, so how will the economy, how would the job markets actually develop over the years? While we cannot predict the future, but there are a lot of people who would be doing market research or the studies on how the market trend is going to change. So McKinsey and Company is one of those consulting companies that are always in the lookout of the change in the economy and in the industry development as well. So in this case, they are looking at the situations in different countries in all over the world. While Singapore is not in the list, but one thing you can think of is that Singapore is actually considered a developed country, so they should be in line with United States, United Kingdom, Germany, and Japan. So you can actually take this as a reference and look at how Singapore is going to change. So the good news is, if you look at those that are in the deeper teal color or the blue color, so that means these are actually the occupations that would be in a rising demand. Because think about it, the statistics that I showed you earlier, it is based on last year's graduates. And if you are deciding on a major, you're joining this year, or for some of the guys, you'll be joining 2 years later. And by the time you graduate, it's going to be 4 to 6 years down the road. So while the statistics can serve as a good reference, but it may not be a very good representation on how the economy is going to be. So in that case, we would want to borrow the reference from some consulting company to look at how the industry landscape is going to change over the years. So what they have demonstrated, actually, health technology, the care workers, STEM professionals, health professionals, these in general for the first world countries, they are always going to be in an increasing demand. So in this case, when you're choosing an engineering program, that means at least you can see a healthy growth along the years. So by the time you graduate, you will still have jobs available for you. Then the other one I want to talk about is, what do you actually what would you be doing as an engineer? So I wanted to use this pharmaceutical industry as an example, since if we are talking about the top industry that recruit our graduates, be it bioengineering or chemical and biomolecular engineering students, pharmaceutical companies is actually one of the biggest recruiters. So in terms of statistics, every year more than 20% of our graduates essentially will be working in pharmaceutical industries. So how would bioengineering or chemical and biomolecular engineering be involved in pharmaceutical industry, and what would they be doing? So before I talk about what would they be doing, I have to mention that we are referring to the manufacturing of drugs. So 8 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies have their manufacturing facilities in Singapore, and essentially they are in the Tuas area. So pharmaceutical companies will be making drugs while at the same time they do drug development. But the main money-making process would be the manufacturing of the different kind of drugs. So in a broad category, we can divide drugs into 3 different kinds. One is the chemical kind. So we make use of chemical reactions to make these drugs. Alternatively, we can use cell cultures to produce drugs that are of our needs. And finally, there will be some type of drugs or materials that actually cannot be made artificially. So in this case, we would have to resort to something that is occurring naturally, either in plants or in animals. And so we would have to go through different types of extraction process to get the actual drug materials. And these drug materials is called the pharmaceutically active substance. So after we have these pharmaceutically active substances available, then we would need to make these drugs into different forms. So we may not be using a pure form, and sometimes we would have to mix it with different kind of materials. So in this case, we can have a dilution process, we can have a proportionation process, and we can have the mixing process as well if it is a solid kind of drug. And afterwards, depending on how we want it to be, so we can have a powder form, we can have tablet form, we can have a capsule form. So we would have to make all these things into various forms depending on how we want to introduce them in the end. So what would bioengineers do and what would the chemical engineers do? So essentially, you'll be applying the various engineering and design principles to help this synthesis process or the manufacturing process. So if you are doing bioengineering, then you will likely be responsible for something that involves the biological aspects. So let's say the production of vaccines and make sure that the cells are going to be healthy. If you are in the chemical engineering disciplines, then you can be responsible for the purifications and make sure that there are limited impurities that is present in the final drugs. But at the same time, you may also be looking at how you can run your manufacturing process more efficiently. So the energy management, the safety aspects, some of the drugs may have a certain toxicity in it. So during the manufacturing process, you also need to make sure that the end product is going to be safe. Economics, since we are talking about manufacturing in a larger scale and probably make the drugs more accessible to different groups of people, so we want to reduce the cost of the production. So essentially, you'll be applying all these different aspects in the manufacturing. So in that case, as an engineer, you can be analyzing the whole process and try to make it more efficient. Or if there's anything that goes wrong, then you would try to do a diagnosis and root cause analysis to find out what needs to be improved and what needs to be fixed. So what you learn in the CCEB curriculum, I'm trying to list out the comparison between the bioengineering courses and the chemical engineering courses. We do have something in common because after all, we are talking about engineering. So the core things about engineering would be the math, physics, biology, as well as the communication, because in most cases, you will not be working alone and you will be collaborating with different groups of people. Thermodynamics, digital literacy would be something in common. Control would also be in common, whether you're dealing with a biological process or whether you're dealing with a chemical process. But what differentiates the two would be for bioengineering students will be focused more on the biomechanics or the bioelectronics, as well as the signal processing. Because if you are involving the medical devices, you would want to know how to interpret the data and how to improve the measurements that you have obtained. For chemical engineering, there are subjects that relates to the energy and also relates to the reactions. So you'll be looking at heat and mass transfer as well as the reaction engineering. And also the unit operations is essentially referring to the separation processes that is involved. So in both cases, you'll be doing your final year project in year 4. And whether it is a design project or research projects, then it will be based on the disciplines. So at the end of year 3, the second semester of year 3, you'll be attached to a local company, which you do your internship. And that would be when you can apply the knowledge that you have learned in school. So another one I want to draw your attention is also the industrial case studies that we offer to year. So for this course, we actually invite companies to provide the problem statements to our students. And they would also be sending in engineers to interact with our students during the problem statement introduction as well as the Q&A. So this would allow our students to have a chance to see what is the actual problems that a company would be facing. And they can also experience the process of solving these problems, presenting their findings to the engineers. So in that case, we are not just learning from the textbook, some standard problems, but we are solving problems that are actually encountered in real life. And at the same time, at the end of these sessions, then companies will also be discussing the path that they have gone through in solving these problems. So you know what is it like to work in a company. So this is going to be my last slide. So another thing that I think you should be looking at is be it bioengineering or chemical and biomolecular engineering. So a lot of the efforts actually is put in the manufacturing. So how much manufacturing is contributing to the Singapore economy? So if you're looking at the 2020 data, the 2021 data is actually not available yet. So if we're looking at the 2020 data, so manufacturing actually is contributing to 300 billion of the total output in Singapore. And what types of manufacturings are we referring to? I'm just listing a few. So food, beverage, and tobacco, refined petroleum products, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, as well as the computer products. So all these, essentially, if you add them all up, they are contributing to more than 60% of the total manufacturing output. So that means, in terms of relevance, these are the industries that would be of relevance to bioengineering and chemical engineering. And we do contribute a lot to the manufacturing in Singapore. And we can also look at the number of employees that they are recruiting. So the number of employees we are referring to, those who are already, currently working in the industry, but they can also be an indication of the demand. How much or how many of these people the industry is going to need. Value add, it's essentially how much value are they generating, because regardless of whether you're producing food, chemicals, or pharmaceuticals, or the electronic products, you are buying in raw materials. You would do a certain process to improve their value. So these value add is how much improvement in terms of values are we giving. So that means this would also be translating to the revenue that we can generate for the company. Okay, and last but not least, the remunerations. How much are you getting paid? So we are dividing this into how much average salary are we getting. So this is something you can also look up to. Of course, there are different levels of jobs that is present in these industries, but this can give you some good indication on how well each of these industries would pay. So I hope these information would be good for you to make your decision. But I would also be available later on in the breakout rooms if you have more questions that you wanted to ask. And with that, I do hope to see you in the School of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering, and Biotechnology, either in August this year or August 2 years later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Raymond, for sharing. So we are now move on to the sharing by Professor Tan Meng Hao. So you will be sharing on the student life in CCEB, career prospect, and what you can expect for being a student in our school. Prof. Tan, please.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Glad that so many of you can join us today. So let me first share my screen. Okay. All right. So, well, my name is Meng Hao, and I'm the Associate Chair for Students. And I think the first thing I should do is to congratulate all of you for having been offered a place in our school. As we hope to be able to welcome you to our very beautiful campus. As you can see here, we have a gorgeous Yunnan garden at the bottom, and then we have a building that is voted one of the top 10 architectural beauties in the world. That houses the School of Architecture, Design, and Media, I believe. And we have many other amazing buildings like the Hive here and so on, which I hope that you get to explore when you come to NTU. So this is, the beginning of a very exciting journey. Well, so of course, in the past few months, you have been trying to figure out how to get yourself admitted. And now that you have been admitted, you can look forward to an awesome life in NTU, not just with taking coursework but I'm sure many of you have heard wonderful stories from your seniors about our hall life and so on. So 60% of our undergraduates, I believe, stay in our halls. Okay, and then of course, after years of 3 to 4 years of study, you graduate and go out into the workforce. But we still continue to keep in touch, actively keep in touch with all alumni, right? So from admissions all the way through your studies and even after graduations, we will always be walking the journey of life with you. So then we are the student office, and this is the people that are in the team. So we have Sion and Gordon, and Janet and me, and there will be another person who will be joining us in August. As you can see, we are a fun-loving bunch of people. So please reach out to us when you arrive on campus. So that's what happens at the beginning, right? So you come into NTU, of course, the first thing is orientations, right? So we have our own CCEB orientation, which we call Nueve, and it has been ongoing for many years now. And I believe the students have a lot of fun participating in all sorts of activities in the orientations. And you get to make long-lasting friendships from day one. Because in the orientations, you will be separated into different groups. Okay, and then many students will continue to keep in touch with the orientation groups, which we will be calling them as clans in the coming year. So I won't review too much, so that I don't want to spoil the surprise if when you come join our school. Okay, so then we have an official CCEB student club. Okay, and then the CCEB club is very active in organizing all sorts of activities for students. So the committee members are all voted in by you, by students yourself, and they will be representing you and serving as a bridge between the student body and the faculty. Okay, and then the club will always constantly organize all sorts of activities, from sports days, different games, exam welfare, PYP stated on the screen is past year papers, so that you don't have to fret too much over your exams. And there are always all sorts of ad hoc competitions like photography competitions, treasure hunts, and so on. Okay, so this is to make sure that student life in our school is enriching. And we are very active in supporting students and their interests. So you can see here that we have a variety of activities. And then of course, we also decorate the walls to indicate where each of the activities is taking place. Okay, so I think the introductory video at the beginning has really given you some flavor of the activities. So here we have the makerspace, where we have a suite of 3D printers where you can basically go in and print anything you want. Okay, so for example, you can see at the right side, you have a car that was 3D printed. And this is something that we are doing with, I believe, some of the community service center. And then I also have some students who are using the 3D printers to make diagnostic devices to detect COVID-19. Yeah, so this is quite a popular activity that students like to do. And then we have another activity here, which is food waste conversions, where we actually have black soldier fly larvae housed on the balcony of our school. And the reason why we keep all these larvae is that they can chomp up food waste, and they are very good at eating. So then the students will, weekly they go around school to collect food waste from the restaurants, food courts, supermarkets, and basically feed the larvae with all this food waste. And then that helps to degrade tons of food waste every academic year. And you can also extract useful biomaterials like chitins, okay, from the pupae of the flies. Okay. And moving forward, we are also trying to set up a genetic engineering facility to reconfigure the larvae so that we can create what we call super flies that can chop up even more food waste. Okay, so this is a sustainability project. Okay, and then I think you probably will have heard quite a bit about the Zymergy Guild by now, which is our very popular fermentation club, where students get to brew whatever they fancy, whether it's beer, kombucha, kimchi, and so on. And then we also have in our lab 4 25-liter bioreactors, so that if you decide that you want to try scaling up, and explore the possibility of doing some commercialization and so on, we will also be able to support you in that direction as well. Okay, so then we from the Zymergy Guilds, we also have beer brewing competitions, and this is a very popular event every year, and we typically have sponsorships from the local pubs, and the judges, some of the judges will come from the local pubs and breweries as well, and they are actually very happy to come because they say that they can check out to see whether our students have created any new flavors that they like, so that they can even sell it in-house in their own pubs. So this is one of the very popular activities in our school. Okay, and then we are also very active in the realm of synthetic biology. So over the past years, at least before COVID, we have been participating in this competition called iGEM. Okay, so iGEM is originated quite a long time ago, I think in around 2004. And it is a synthetic biology research competition for university students. Okay, so there's every university would like to send a team of undergrad students where they work on a SynBio related project for a year or so, a year or two, depending on the university. Okay, and then sometime in November, all the teams will come together, usually in Boston, to present their research to judges and to hear what other teams around the world have worked on. Okay, so today this competition has grown to be quite massive. Okay, so typically every year now, over 300 universities will take part in the iGEM competitions. Okay, and then NTU is one of them. So our school is very active in supporting students to take part in the competitions. And we, our team has worked on a variety of projects, ranging from engineering Shigella bacteria to create new microbial fuel cells, to engineering new CRISPR systems, to creating novel diagnostic assays, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is also a very popular activity among undergrad students as well. And yes, we do fly the students to Boston to present the projects. Okay, so then we also have students who are very interested in data analytics. Okay, so we have INATA for analytics and data, where they regularly hold workshops, for example, programming workshops on data structures, algorithms, Python programming, and so on. And they'll be tied up sometimes with industry to work on real-world problem statements. Okay, so this is an activity for those who are interested in big data or data mining, machine learning, and so on. Okay, and then we also have another activity which is organized by the CCEB club or SCBE club, which is the Chemi-Car competitions, where teams of students will try to build their own car from scratch, but the car has to be powered by some form of a chemical reaction. Okay, so then the students have a lot of fun trying to build the car, figure out what kind of chemical reactions they want to use, okay, and then to transport some form of cargo from one place to another. Okay, typically there's a task that needs to be completed in the competition. Okay, so that's before COVID, we also try to send students overseas. So here is, this is something that happened before COVID, where students went to Myanmar in 2019, okay, to do pretty much community service. Here is, trying to help improve the water drainage system, give, English lessons and so on, okay, in Myanmar. Okay, so this is something that I believe that we will probably resume in the coming academic year as well. Okay, given that the COVID situation has stabilized. Okay, so I've been telling you a lot about all these fun, student-initiated activities. Of course, we are not limited by what I've told you. So if you join our school, and if you come up with your specific interests that you would like to pursue, please feel free to approach me. Okay, and then we can see how we can best support your ideas or your interests. Okay, so for example, in this year, I believe one of the year 1 students came to us, okay, to say that she is very interested in converting spent cooking oil to soap. Okay, so then basically we thought, okay, that sounds interesting, right? It ties in with the push for sustainability in the Singapore economy, right? So then we basically gave her some money, some bench space, and then she and her friends are basically converting spent cooking oil to soap. Okay, so then this is a small example of how we try to support what students would like to try out outside of coursework. Okay, so that's beyond all these student-initiated activities, we also try to encourage undergrads to participate in research. Okay, so that in CCEB we are actually very well poised because if you look at what is happening in this decade, right? So we are looking at a circular bioeconomy that is sustainable, right? And this is because of the various global challenges that we are facing, whether it is climate change, okay, whether it is ecosystem degradation, environmental pollution, and growing demands for food and energy. Okay, so these are all very serious problems that are facing us in the coming decades. And our curriculum is designed to help our undergraduate students tackle some of these global challenges. Okay, and we encourage our students to participate in research as well, so that they can experience the joy of coming up with solutions to some of these challenges. All right, so here are the to solve the challenges, basically we need to have all sorts of innovations. Okay, so that of course to feed a growing population, right? We see today that there are animal-free burgers, right, and ice cream, and all sorts of other animal-free products coming. Okay, and then there are all sorts of examples that you can find on the internet. So here are a couple that I've listed, where one is ExxonMobil is collaborating with synthetic genomics to create new algae strains, okay, that can serve as a means of producing fuels. Okay, and then the cacao, important global food crop that's used to produce chocolates, okay, is currently facing a number of untreatable plant diseases. Okay, so Mars, right, the chocolate company, right, is collaborating with an institute in Berkeley, the Innovative Genomics Institute, to try to genetically engineer the cacao trees, okay, so that they will be resistant to all these different diseases. Okay, so then in CCEB, we are also actively working on some of these innovations, okay, to try to meet the challenges of the decades. Okay, and then here are some examples of our faculty who are at the forefront of research. Okay, so at the top here, you can see Prof. Mary Chan showing a smart food packaging material that her lab has invented. Okay, so the packaging material basically is biodegradable, okay, and then it also is infused with biopolymers and antimicrobial compounds that are capable of killing all sorts of germs. Okay, so this will enable you to keep your food fresher, right, for a longer period of time. Okay, and then at the bottom you have research from Prof. William Chen's lab, where they transform discarded urine husks into antibacterial gel bandages. Okay, so this research is in line with Singapore's push towards zero waste. Okay, so there are many other examples as well. Okay, so then here another couple of examples. The top one is involving Lee Jong-Ming from our school to recycle plastics found in electronic waste. Okay, and then at the bottom is an example where our faculty, Paul Liu, is involved in NTU's facility in Tuas that actually converts our university's trash into valuable resources, okay, like construction materials. All right, so then beyond the sustainability angle, okay, our faculty are also at the forefront of research for healthcare. Okay, so here are a couple of examples. Okay, the top one here shows Prof. Chen Peng, okay, who is an expert in carbon nanotubes, okay, and nano devices. Okay, so here he has invented micro needles, okay, that can allow you to deliver drugs, okay, across the skin barrier. All right, and then at the bottom is one of our young faculty, Deng Tui Tran, okay, who is working actively on new therapeutic strategies to cure diabetes. All right, so we all know diabetes is a problem in Singapore, right? So, you know, she's actively working on new strategies to treat diabetes, and she has a startup from her lab called Formocyte Therapeutics, which has recently won second place in a local entrepreneurship competition. Okay, so I hope that I've given you a good flavor of, you know, some of the cutting edge research that is going on in our school, as we encourage students to, you know, reach out to faculty, and if you're interested in certain areas, don't feel shy to, you know, try to, you know, be proactive and reach out. Okay, and you know, we also try to make sure that, you know, the students and faculty interact as much as possible. Of course, before COVID, happens much more easily. So where, you know, we will usually hold, you know, mingling sessions between students and faculty members, and I'm hoping that we can restart some of these sessions, given that the Singapore is slowly relaxing its safety measures for the COVID pandemic. Okay, so this will allow, you know, students to get closer to the faculty members as well. Okay, so that's the reason why we want to encourage students to, you know, look at cutting edge research is so that you can position yourself to take up some of the leading edge jobs that are available in the economy. Okay, so this is, you know, basically a slide highlighting that our MTI, Ministry of Trade and Industry, has come out with 20 over industry transformation maps of, you know, all sorts of different sectors. Okay, and here are some of the sectors that are relevant to our graduates, including energy and chemicals, food manufacturing, and healthcare. Okay, so of course EDB has done their own analysis of the landscape, and the long story short is that, you know, there are plenty of opportunities and investments in all these different areas. Okay, so the next few slides basically just highlight to you how you know, Singapore has managed to attract all sorts of companies, you know, including big MNCs into Singapore, you know, to set up plants and so on. So that's actually, you know, will give our graduates a lot of opportunities for exciting employment jobs. Right. So here you can see that, you know, the big German chemical giant BASF. I believe BASF is probably the world's biggest producer of chemicals, okay, including all sorts of polymers, bases, and acids. Okay, so BASF has set up a plant in Troyes. Okay, and then the bottom one is Total Energies from France. Okay, so they also have a presence in Singapore as well. Okay, and here are another couple more. So SABIC and the NES from Finland. Okay, so I'll leave you to go and Google and read up more on them. So they also have plants, production plants in Singapore as well. Okay, so besides the energy space, okay, so the medtech space, we have also been very attractive. Singapore has also been very attractive to medtech companies. Okay, so for example, Perkin-Elmer. So if you have done research in biology-related labs, you will know that many of the lab equipment, for example, plate readers and some of the automations in biolabs are actually manufactured by Perkin-Elmer. Okay, so then they have set up the instrument manufacturing facility in Singapore. Okay, then of course with COVID, there's a need, you know, to manufacture, you know, all sorts of, you know, protective equipment, your swabs, diagnostics assays, and so on. Okay, so that we have, you know, in recent years we have seen quite a number of startups in Singapore to to make, design, and fabricate some of these important equipment and assays that are needed for the COVID pandemic. Okay, and here I'd like to highlight to you the breath analyzer, okay, called 3CX, which was developed by a faculty member in CCEB. Okay, and basically, it has been trialed in Parliament and Changi Airport. Okay, and the company that was spun off is called Silver Factory. Okay, and then they are actively expanding the presence in the market, and hopefully it will do well in the coming years. Okay, so then besides medtech, okay, there are other good examples in biotech space that shows you the various employment opportunities there are. Okay, so you have pharma giant GSK opening a manufacturing facility in Singapore. Okay, so GenScript, another global biotech company, okay, also has recently launched this year, okay, a manufacturing facility in Singapore as well. Okay, and then on the vaccine space, so BioNTech, right? So I'm sure many of you by now should know BioNTech and Pfizer, right? Because of the mRNA vaccines. Okay, so they are setting up the regional HQ and manufacturing in Singapore as well. And we also have Filament Labs. Okay, I believe it's a collaboration with Merck. Okay, and they are also setting up a facility, a vaccine manufacturing facility in Singapore, which is expected to be fully operational by 2023. So you can see that our graduates are really very well poised to take up some of these exciting jobs in all these companies. Okay, and of course we try to bring the companies closer to you. So we are always actively trying to arrange for industry visits, either bring the company representatives to campus or bring our students to visit the companies, so on and so forth. Okay, and we also get our alumni who are working in the industry to come back and share. Okay, and some of our alumni also try to recruit their juniors to their companies as well. Okay, so that's the overall. I hope that gives you a good image of what you can expect out of an education in our school. Okay, so then we have in place a very strong academic support and student care support. Okay, so then we have, for example, a very active peer tutoring program where we try to match weaker students with the stronger students. Okay, so then the weaker students can catch up and not be left behind. Okay, and we also have pastoral care managers. Currently we have one, but in August we will be having a second one. Okay, and then the pastoral care manager will help to look after students who may need emotional support or may have family issues and so on. Okay, so you can feel free to reach out to us as well. All right, and so of course we also have in our school a nice student lounge, okay, for students to chill, relax, and play games and have snacks, interact with one another. So hopefully that will make your student life, 4 years or so at CCEB much more enjoyable. Okay, so I think that's all I have. So we look forward to having you on board our CCEB family. Feel free to ask us questions later on, email us, or you can check us out on all the various social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Telegram, and Twitter as well. I think we are on all the social media platforms. Plus, I think I have one last slide. And we are also going ahead to organize a physical events. Okay, so now Singapore has relaxed its safety measures because most of us are vaccinated. So we are going to have a physical tea party next weekend on the 21st of May. Okay, so it will be at the NTU Alumni Club at 1 North. Okay, so I believe later on, Janet will blast out the information to all students who have been offered places on how to register for the event. So if you want to meet faculty in person and chat with us and so on, please feel free to come down to meet us and interact with us, and we'll be very excited to meet up with you as well. Okay, I think that's all I have for now. Okay, so happy to take questions in the next hour.
Thank you, Prof. Tan, for the sharing. Let me now introduce our student ambassadors. So for our bioengineering student ambassadors, we have Valerie from year 2. Sorry, we have Valerie from year 2, Nicole from year 3, and Eunice from year 4. For our chemical and biomolecular engineering student ambassadors, we have Tessa, a year 3 student, who is currently also pursuing a minor in business, Robert, a year 2 student, Kevin, a year 3 student, Huiling, a year 3 student, and Jason, a year 1 student. For our student ambassadors who are currently pursuing a second major, we have Ren Xuan, a CBE year 4 student who is currently pursuing a second major in food science and technology. We have Gavin, a CBE year 1 student pursuing a second major in business. And we have Jin Tao, a CBE year 3 student pursuing a second major in business. For our student ambassadors who are scholars, firstly, we have Melissa, a year 3 BIE student who is currently holding the midterm scholarship. We have Hui Shi, a year 3 BIE student who is pursuing a second major in pharmaceutical engineering and is holding the Nanyang scholarship. We have Deandra, a BIE year 1 student pursuing a second major in business and is currently holding the NTU College scholarship. And lastly, we have Dave, a year 3 CBE student pursuing a second major in business and is holding the Nanyang scholarship. For our international student ambassadors, we have Chun Ting, a BIE year 2 student pursuing a second major in food science and technology. We have Farhana, a CBE year 3 student. And we have Divyanshi, a CBE year 1 student pursuing a second major in business. Now we will be proceeding to the Q&A section in our respective breakout rooms. We have a total of 5 breakout rooms, namely Professor Room, where we'll have Professor Raymond and Professor Ming Hao. We will also have the BIE, Bioengineering, and CBE, Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering rooms, as well as the second majors and scholarship and the international room. The breakout room will be made available after this presentation, and you may enter the respective rooms by clicking on the icon located at your Zoom toolbar. You may also leave the room and join other rooms to interact with our student ambassadors too. Also, do not forget to scan our CCEB e-brochure QR code should you wish to understand more on NTU's CCEB. Do also share with us your feedback through the feedback QR code. You may also wish to connect with us through our student ambassadors or professors, and even experience a 360 virtual tour and chat with our student ambassadors. And lastly, you may wish to attend our upcoming tea party on the 21st May, should you wish to interact with us physically. Lastly, we hope to see you in the School of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering, and Biotechnology. Please give us a moment as we open up the breakout rooms. To the audience, the breakout room has now been opened, and you may start to join in to our respective breakout rooms.